Ladies and gentlemen, let us jump into the maw.
Yes, rats.
Is that what the goose
What the hell is
machine
this? Hold on.
requires? Cheese?
Recently, Blizzard said that they have done a big update to the Maw, a combat overhaul as it was described, so we've delved in. I'll be honest with you guys. I've done 2 days, that's more than enough for me to assess what's going on with the Maw and give you your feedback, especially with your biggest concern, which is alts and how this is going to affect them. Because the Maw is turning into the grind. That's what the Maw is becoming. It's turning into the Anima grind, the Azerite power grind. It's kind of coming from there, but it's not quite as effective or as impactful as those grinds were. So don't panic just yet. Let's start with what they've changed. So we did cover that they've added a number of new items to Venari. Venari is a wonderful character that you're going to meet in the Maw. Venari has a staging ground for the Maw where you are immune to the Eye of the Jailer. The Eye of the Jailer is the daily restriction on how long you can stay in the Maw. It has 5 levels, and at level 5, you're going to essentially be killed by the Jailer. It's unavoidable. You get a stacking debuff that constantly takes more and more health, so you do get a bit of leeway with this. Once you hit level 5, it takes about 3 minutes for it to build up before it starts actually damaging you. Then it takes time to actually get to the point where it's going to be deadly. This is more than enough time for you to get out of the Maw, and you're probably going to want to do that because when you die, you lose some of your currency, similar to Dark Souls. It's called Stygia. Every time you die in the Maw, you drop some Stygia. Now, they have reduced this. It used to be half your Stygia, which is very, very expensive. Now you tend to drop about 17 Stygia, and if you get back to your corpse, you can loot it and get it back. Nobody else seems to be able to take it from you, which is good news. But if you do get back to your corpse, you can reclaim it. Obviously, at level 5, getting back to your corpse is going to be far more difficult, although at the moment, it does reset this level 5 Jailer debuff once you die and get resurrected again, so you do have a chance of getting it back, although this should be your warning. You hit level 5, it's time to leave, and that, at the moment, is a daily reset. Now, I truly hope they turn this into a weekly reset. It would make what we're about to talk about a lot better of a pill to swallow, if I'm being honest with you. Why do you want to go to the Maw? That's the big question. So we kind of had to mention that the Maw didn't receive much coverage from me or anyone else over the course of the alpha and the beta. And why? There's nothing there. It's bare bones. It's empty. And it looked to us as just unfinished. And given the amount of work Blizzard needs to do with the Shadowlands, that was fine. They didn't have time to really flesh out the Maw yet. So, okay, that's cool. There was no real reason to go there in the first place. Everything's good. But now they've started to put stuff in the Maw. They want the Maw to be a place you visit. It is, after all, your end game zone. It's where the Jailer resides. It's where Torghast is. They want it to matter. So in order to very quickly and kind of shoehorn in a reason to get there, one of the things they've added, of course, is the ability to add gem slots to your gear. Similar to what you have with Visions now, where you can get the eyes, and if you've got a piece of ungem slotted gear, you can add a gem slot to it. They have put that in the Maw. It costs 2,500 Stygia. How much is that? On average, you're going to get somewhere between 400 to 500 per day, so it's not a big deal. That's before the Jailer does kick you out. On top of that, they've added quite a number of items, and these are, interestingly, permanent upgrades to that character. These are things that will grant you more powers that you get to choose from within Torghast. Certain things won't affect you as much inside Torghast. There are lots of them that affect you only in Torghast. But there are then some that allow you to ignore some of the effects of Eye of the Jailer. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting, because in order to really make this kind of pop, they've made some of the affixes, one in particular, ludicrously obnoxious. And I pray to God it does not go live this way. As you level up through the Maw, through your daily visit, at level 1, these eyes will start spotting you. And these eyes travel around the Maw, and they will spot you from a good long way away once you hit level 1, and they will start casting spells at you. Now, they have a number of spells, and one in particular, the Devastation Beam, will just kill you if you don't interrupt it or stop it in some way. They're actually quite dangerous. That's something to bear in mind. At level 2, you're going to start being bombarded by the towers. So this will be a ground effect that you'll see, a white swirly, and if you stand in it, you're going to be pinned to the floor until you click all the pins out of the floor so you can continue moving. Super easy to avoid, barely an inconvenience whatsoever, don't worry about it too much. At level 3, you're going to start getting the assassins. Now this is cool as well. It gives you a warning to say you are being hunted. The next time you enter combat, an assassin will appear. They're relatively strong, often stronger than the mob you would have been engaging normally, so this is something you want to be aware of, but it does give you a nice heads up to say, hey, Next time you get in combat, an assassin's going to come. Maybe pick something relatively weak so you can get the assassin out of the way without risking dying and losing some of your Stygia. That's fine too. Level 4 though, they've reworked. Previously at level 4 you would get elite assassins, which are just slightly more dangerous. Sometimes it's just 2 assassins, which you could deal with no problem. This time they've added the Stygian Abductor. I hate this thing so much. I can't even express to you how much I hate this thing. Every 2.5 minutes you are going to be snatched. Now, you can't seemingly immune this. You can't do anything to prevent it happening unless, even if you're in a cave, it comes through the cave and it will drag you through the ceiling of the cave. What happens is the Stygian Abductor will swoop down from the skies. He will grab your character and then he will ever so slowly drag you up into the sky. This CCs your character for about 40 seconds. It's the least amount of fun you can possibly have ever. It sucks. Once you've reached the top, it's going to throw you. Now, at the moment, it says you get debuffed with an effect that should silence and pacify you. This means you should not be able to cast things like Slowfall, Ice Block, you should not be able to use Goblin Gliders, you should not be able to disengage, you should not be able to do anything to prevent your death, because it's going to just drop you on the floor from an extreme height and you're going to die. That is what this thing is designed to do. So yes, at the moment, every 2.5 minutes, this is going to kill you. Now, right now, this debuff doesn't work, so I have to wonder whether or not they're thinking of just not having this debuff. I could disengage, I could Goblin Glider, I could do all kinds of things to prevent my death. It was actually just really inconvenient. If this thing goes live when it does pacify you, without being a little tricky, like ice blocking just before the debuff applies and doing things like that, then there's a very high chance that every 2.5 minutes this thing is just going to straight up kill you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, even if they don't allow that, this still doesn't fix the issues I have with the Stygian Abductor. It drags you so high that you drop out of combat with whatever you were in at the time. That means if you're killing a rare, which some of them have extreme amounts of health and take longer than 2.5 minutes to kill, you're going to be dragged up and lose your tag with that boss. That's it. There's nothing you can do about it. So I was lucky. If somebody else is keeping it in combat and it doesn't die while you're in the air, then you can get back down, and I could disengage, which you might not be able to do once this thing goes live, and then get in combat with it. But sometimes I was fighting an enemy for like 7 minutes, which means I was being abducted multiple times over the course of combat with this enemy. It's ludicrously unfun. However, this is where I guess your personal preference kind of comes into play. They have put in, on Venari, items that you can buy with Stygia which permanently grant you a character upgrade to prevent the Stygian Abductor from getting you, as well as countering a number of the other affixes that the jailer puts on you. How do you access them? It's a rep grind. That's really what the Maw is. It's a rep grind with Venari. As you do more and more tasks and more daily quests, you'll get some reputation, and eventually Venari's going to like you, unlock more items similar to any other rep grind in World of Warcraft, which prevent you from having to deal with these things. So here's my personal issue with this. I really am never a fan of purposely hamstringing or debilitating the player and then offering the solution later. So we take a player, we move them 4 steps back so we can offer an item later which just moves them straight back to where they were. And that's what this is. You're going to be tediously CC'd, abducted, do all these things until you get the rep to just no longer have that happen. And that's like the monumental upgrade. Now, some people have spoke to sell it felt quite satisfying to have to put up with this tedious nonsense until they could then get the upgrade and then they could get past it. And they were okay with it. Other players, like myself, just think that this is just obnoxious. It's not fun. Being CC'd every 2.5 minutes for 40 seconds isn't interesting or fun. And certainly if it comes down to the fact that this kills your character, I'm not into it whatsoever. So let's move on to the alt things. That's how the Eye of the Jailer works. That's the counters and how you can deal with it, and the reputation grind associated with it. What about these sockets then? Does this mean that this is mandatory content? Well, it depends, of course, as we spoke to many times recently, how you play World of Warcraft. If you are somebody who is performance-minded and it matters that your character can perform at an extra 1% DPS, 1% healing, 1% tanking, yeah, this has just become your new grind. And I'm sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do. And it's likely, if given the fact that it gives gem slots and our gear refreshes every tier, it's likely to be a long one too. It's likely to go on and on and on, so you have a variety of gem slots to add. If you use multiple types of gear because you off-spec, it's even more of a burden. It's exactly what Blizzard said they really weren't going to introduce in the Shadowlands. And it feels like they were like, we need something for them all. Let's throw this in there. And I'm not a fan. I think if the Maw should exist, it should exist for fun, for upgrading Torghast and making that better. Totally fine with that. It's optional, no big deal. Doesn't really affect my character's performance without adding a really long and tedious grind. As I said, if the Eye of the Jailer reset weekly, it would be a much better pill to swallow, because you could spread it out over the week. You could do an hour here, you could bash it all out on reset day, or you could just do some similar to Islands, similar to Warfronts. You can kind of just get them done whenever you feel like it, and you're done for the week. It's got a weekly lock-off. Or add in a Stygia cap, something like that, so that this isn't like an everyday thing. That would be fine. Like a relevant cap or something along those lines to prevent this being a thing. Right now, it's a daily event. You can build to level 5. That takes a reasonable amount of time, by the way. It's based on how much Stygia you collect. So you can do it quicker. If you go with a group, you kill a lot of rares. Right now, they're dropping different amounts of Stygia, so it's hard to gauge the exact time that you would spend in there. But if you go in a group and you kind of know what you're looking for, then you could probably bash it out very, very quickly. Hit level 5, get as much Stygia as you can, and then just leave. Doing that daily, though, definitely turns it into a less fun option. And this is one of those things that I really worry about in terms of player feedback. Because even though I can sit here and say, do you really need all gem slots on your alts? No, you don't. I don't need it. Nobody really needs it. But people want it. And therefore comes the problem of, I really would like to have all gem slots on my character. I'm sure some of you have been out there farming visions to get gem slots. If you're of that mind, this is going to turn into like daily visions. So not even limited by keys, just visions all the time. So we don't want that either, especially as they take longer than visions to cap. So that's the Maw right now. Some really simple changes here could make this much better. I don't even think we need the gem slot vendor. I don't think it's necessary. I think gem slots should be a nice little bonus. If they are going to put them somewhere else. Make them more fun. Make it anima, so I can put anima into my sanctum, or I can put it into gaining gem slots. Because the sanctum upgrades are really just for weekly events and things that don't affect my character. So I have a choice. Do I want to invest this way, or do I want to invest that way? Limiting it all entirely to the Maw, making it daily, turning it into what people will feel, regardless of whether it is actually, but feel like a mandatory grind, I am dead against. So there's the Maw, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.